Okay, welcome back. Let's do something new here. Let's actually make an app. This is a part of the App Development Swift book. This is Unit 4, Chapter 2. So let's go ahead and go into the book here, and you'll see 4.2. So if you look at the chapters, we're looking at App Anatomy and Lifecycle. And what a lot of this is just a visual representation. We're going to make an app that shows you when the view loads, when the view might disappear, these kinds of things that happen when your app is launched. So let's just sit back and follow along. We're going to start by launching Xcode. And when you launch Xcode, it's going to ask you to make a new project. I'm going to just do a single view app for this, and I'm going to call it view, or no, I'll just call it 4.2 demo. It's going to ask you a bunch of things here. I have a team. You might not have a team. That's okay. Put something in here. Put something in here. Make sure it's Swift. Don't check those. Hit the next button. And then I always leave create git repository just why not. And it's asking you where to put it. I have a folder called demos that I'm putting it in, but you could throw it on your desktop. And this is where it's going to put all of your files and folders and whatnot. So I'm going to hit create. It's going to create a folder for me, so I don't have to make a folder for it. And here we go. This is Xcode. Xcode, if you're not familiar with it, then there's a video that I made, Introduction to Xcode. But Xcode is the IDE, the software you use to make apps for the iPhone. If you don't see all your files, then hit this little triangle button and drops them down. And then these are the files that you're going to be concerned with today. One's called the AppDelegate. Here's a bunch of Swift code. And one's called the ViewController. And then you might have to, you'll have to fiddle around with the storyboard a little bit, a visual representation of your app. So the first thing it's going to want you to do is to take a closer look at this AppDelegate. I'm going to slide this window out so we've got some more room here. And inside the AppDelegate, you've got a class. It's called AppDelegate. And these are actually protocols. And if you watched the last video I posted, it talked about protocols. So there's protocols that this AppDelegate is going to adhere to. And there are certain functions that just ship with the AppDelegate. Application did finish launching with options, return true, application will be resign active. And there's a lot of text here to explain when each of these happen. Did enter foreground, did become active, will terminate. And these things happen, for instance, this would happen right before your app is terminated. It calls this function. So sometimes you might want your app to do something right before it closes, and this might be a place to put that thing you want it to do. Now, oftentimes you override these functions inside of your actual view controllers. So like view did load is overridden, see? So we've got our own thing we want to happen when view loads. AppDelegate kind of affects everything that isn't overridden. So I hope I have that right. If I don't, correct me. That's okay. So we're taking a look at those methods, and then the book says that, let's see here, what does it want us to do? Sure. So the book is saying, well, why not just add some print statements in here and see what happens? So I'm going to print out some stuff. I'll print, this one is called did finish launching. That's how you make a print statement. And I'm just going to copy it because I'm lazy. And this one's called will resign active. Another one down here. And I'm going to pause and take care of this for you. Okay, so I added print statements for each of these functions that are inside of the AppDelegate. And now I kind of want to see what happens when we launch our app. So I'm going to launch the app. Build and run is Command R, or you can click this little play button up here. Might take a moment. See how speedy my computer's feeling today. Good, good. Okay. So the very first thing that happened is did finish launching, then did become active. So you can see it's getting to this point, and then it's getting to this point here. So let's see. Now, one thing I might want to try is like, what if I hit the home button? Now it goes away. Now what happened down here? Did enter background. So if you wanted to do something special when it enters the background, here is your method you want to override. And then let's see, going back in there. Where's my app now? 4.2 demo. Now it's back there. Let's see. Did become active. So did become active happens when you bring the app back to the foreground. And then let's see. Oops, sorry Siri. If we crash it, like what if we delete the whole app? Does anything happen? Boom. Let's see what happens down here. Should be interesting. Message from debugger terminated due to signal 9. So that kind of a thing didn't cause it to terminate. I assume that will terminate is like if you try to close the app normally, you don't actually delete it off your phone while it's running. So this is just interesting stuff to test out. You know, when do things happen for your app? When you're creating it, you'll need this. So that's pretty cool, but like it kind of sucks having to go back to this view to check stuff out. So why not, like, let's make the phone itself tell us what's going down. So here's the ViewController. This is all part of the assignment. I'm going to slide this back out over here. So I want a label. All right, so I'm going to add some labels. There's 6 things that can happen that are in the AppDelegate. So I'm going to add 6 labels. 1, 2. You don't have to listen to me count. I'll just add them. Everyone knows I can count. Okay, so I've added some labels. I'm going to actually select one, hit Command A, select everything, and then just reset to suggested constraints. So I've added some constraints on there. Now, we can label these, I suppose. I'm just going to call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because reason is because we're going to actually fill in the text later. Okay, so I've got 3 labels. Now, those labels aren't connected to anything, so here's where things get kind of weird. Click these double rings here, the assistant editor it's called, and give yourself some space. I'm going to give myself some extra space now. And so here's my view, and here's my label, and then here is, on this side, is the ViewController that's associated with it. You might have to select it if it's not selected. And then you go over the label, you hold down the Option key. That's not right. You hold down the Control key, and this label is so small. Yeah, I gotta make them bigger. And you want to click and drag. So you're holding Control, click and drag into your ViewController. So this is going to be called first label. They might want me to call it something different. Let me see what they're asking us to call it. Forget it. We're just going to call them first label, second label, third label. Because I'm feeling lazy. I'm making these labels a little bit bigger. I'm going to have to actually probably get them super big. Let's just make them with the width. I'm going to take some time and make these labels as big as the frame here. I'll save you the trouble of watching me. So I've made these labels wide, and you know, when you're making these labels wider or not, you might mess with your constraints a little bit. So I'm going to select everything again and just reset to the suggested constraints again. You see it snaps them kind of where it thinks it should go. The constraints will help things slide around when your screen rotates and stuff, so things aren't off the screen. And the other thing is, like, okay, so there's one way to do this where you hold the Control button and drag the label over here and then name it. So this is the second label, we'll say. There's another way you can do this also. So I'm going to just copy and paste this a bunch of times. Now I'll call this one third. I'll call this one fourth. Call fifth. And sixth. I guess it's just sixth, but I like sixth. Okay, so you'll see these aren't connected now, right? You can just drag this over here and connect them that way too. There's another way too. There's so many ways to do this. So many ways. So if you're just in this view, the liney view, standard editor, then you can also select your ViewController at the top here and go to this last tab. And when you select the whole thing, it'll show you everything that's connected to this particular view, all the outlets that are connected to it or that are listed in it. So you'll see the fifth label here. You can drag it like this, and the sixth label like this. A lot of different ways doing the same thing. Okay, so now we've got outlets and they're connected. Now we're kind of done with this screen here. We can go back to our code now. So I'm going to try to find my code. Oh, where'd it go? Well, I hid it because I wanted to give myself some space. So it's over there. Now we're in the ViewController, and you'll see they're all connected. Oh, the book says to use a stack view for this. I don't use stack views often. I don't like stack views, but I'll give it a try. How do you do that? So I selected all of them, and then I'm adding it to a stack view like that. With this little thing here. Now it's a big mess, right? I mean, I don't know how that's going to work, but let's see if it works. We'll just leave it. Looks like it's giving us some constraints issues, like it doesn't like the constraints. Part of the reason why I don't use stack views because it's a little weird about constraints. It really wants to know a lot. And we'll see how it works. If it doesn't work well, we'll just undo it. By the way, if that happens, I double-clicked on the storyboard and it like opened up in a new window. I popped the window. You can just close that out. Let's just launch it and see what happens. I mean, nothing's gonna work yet. I mean, the log down here will work, and the buttons should be in the view. Let's see. Yep, they're there. Okay, there's the buttons. All right, at least they're showing up there. And if we rotate it, yep, they're still on the screen. So we know our constraints are kind of working. Well, actually, maybe not. But anyways, I digress. Okay, what's next? What's next? All right, so the book says let's make some variables. Oh, I can make variables all day, no big deal. Variable, and we'll call it launch count. So they want to make a variable for each of the items in the delegate. So we'll count how many times that it launches. We'll count how many times that it becomes active, stuff like that. So let me fill this out for you guys. Boom. Oops, got launch count in there twice. I already did this before, so I've got it all there. So there's one called launch count, resign active count, enter background count, enter foreground count, become active count. All of these things are variables, and they're set to currently assigned to 0. Now they also want us to create a new function called update view. And when the view updates, it wants to just update the text in the view. So all these labels that we made to change those. So let's see. I actually kept it simple. So it's like first label dot text assigned to this. It probably would have been better for me to name it other things other than first, second, third, fourth, you know, because it would have been more descriptive. Now, one thing to note is if you should change, like, you go in here and you change this, it's going to break that connection to your storyboard, and so you're going to have to reconnect the outlet, and you might have to, here, let me just show you. So if I change this here, see it's broken here, but in addition, your app will crash when you launch it because this label is still looking for first label, and so you have to X this out and then reconnect the new one. I'm just going to undo that. Undo it and leave it as first label. Because again, feeling kind of lazy. All right, so I'm going to enter in some text here. I'll skip ahead because this video is getting kind of long. Okay, so I entered some text, and so I've assigned strings to each of the text labels. So the text that's inside of those labels over here should populate with all of this stuff that I put in. The app launched this many times, the application will resign active happened this many times, and those are all properties that are stored here. But we're not actually counting them up, we're not adding to them yet, so we've got to tally up those numbers, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have to do that somewhere in the AppDelegate. The problem is we don't have, how do I put this? We don't have access to these currently because we haven't made a ViewController over here. It doesn't know what that ViewController is. So my guess is that's where we're moving next. Let me check the instructions. Pausing to read. Yep, as I suspected. Now we're in the AppDelegate, and we've got to make some mention of the ViewController because all of our stuff is over here. So how are we going to get to this stuff without making a ViewController over here? So we're going to make a ViewController over here. We're going to call it variable, call it, I don't know. I'm just going to call it VC because I'm lazy. And it's of the type ViewController. And it might exist, it might not, so I'm going to make it an optional with this question mark here. Okay, so down here, when the app finishes launching with options, I'm going to say VC assigned to the window dot root ViewController as a ViewController. Let's see if that works. Is it cool with that? You notice it put the optional thing in there for me. That was very nice of it. Okay, it seems cool with that. So now all I got to say is VC dot launch count, because launch count is a property of the ViewController, and then I'm going to do this fancy plus equals 1. So that increments it by 1. This is the same as saying launch count assigned to launch count plus 1. It's just a shorthand. And we can leave that print statement in. Why not? Let's see if this works first. Now, one thing is I don't think we're updating the view after it happens yet. See, it probably worked, but it didn't call that update view thingy. So let's see where that's got to go. I'm going to stop the simulator. Well, I mean, first of all, we should go over to the ViewController itself, and then I made the function called updateView, but it's not happening anywhere. So at the very least, it should happen here, and the view did load. Now let's run and see what happens. Oh, look at that. That's interesting stuff. T. Now, I got a feeling my stack view isn't scaling properly. So I'm going to go back over there. I'm going to learn more about stack view for you guys, but for now, I'm feeling lazy. Let's get it out of a stack view. I think this video series should be not be called Cracking Code with Dave. It should be Dave's Lazy. That's what it should be called. Command Z, Z. All right, I undid some stuff. Yep, looks good. Now let's run it again. Stupid stack views. The app launched 1 time. There it is. See? And then this one happened 0 times. This one happened 0 times. I'm probably going to, you know what I'm going to do here? Let me show you how to do this. I'm going to make these bigger, these labels larger, and I'm going to make them multiple lines. So you do that in this inspector view here, and you can just add lines. So I'm going to make it 2 lines. I'll do that for each of these, so I can see a little more, because it looks like it's not really wrapping the way I want it to. We're losing some text, and you can see as I'm doing this, Xcode's yelling at me, a little warning me that with these, you see how it's yellow, it turns yellow, the dotted lines. Sometimes they're yellow, sometimes they're red. That means there's some problems with the constraints that I probably want to look at. I know there's problems with the constraints. I'm moving it around. I get that. I'm going to fix it in just a second. But for now, I just want to make these big enough so I can see. And if I was really doing this For real, I would probably go in here and make them all the same height. Oh, there's probably a way for me to select these all and evenly space them. Let me figure out how to do that. Do. Align horizontal centers. Oh, I don't know. Dave's feeling lazy. Just space them out. I'll figure it out later. Just gonna eyeball it. It's not even a real app I'm making here. Okay. All right, so got a little lazy. I scooted these things around, made them bigger. Let's see if it fits a little better now. Groovy. And you can see now that I add the extra line, it's going down to the second row there, so we can at least read what's happening. All right, you can also adjust the font size, all that stuff. Don't have to worry about it. What we got to worry about now, though, is you saw it only updated the top thingy. So now I want to update each additional one. So I'm going to do that very similar to the way I did this one here, except that, how do I put this? We actually don't have to do, we have to do a little bit less because we've declared what the ViewController is. As soon as the app launches, we said the ViewController is this thingy. So, and this only happens once. The app launches just once. So we don't have to assign it again. So now all we got to do is this kind of code, but for each of these down here. So like for this one, it would be, instead of launch count, it would be app will resign active, I think it's called, or will resign active. Where's my thingy called? Resign active count, there it is. And then this one down here is called did enter background, did enter or entered background count. And here vc dot enter foreground count plus equal 1. So we're incrementing these counts. Let me complete these out for you guys. Okay, so now I've done that. I've added, excuse me, I've incremented the count on the ViewController over here. Now let's see what happens. Excuse me. All right, so things are happening. The app launched one time, and I can clearly see that down here. It also became active one time, but you'll see it's not becoming active. Where it's become active, it's not showing it here. And I think the reason is because we haven't, oh gosh, we got to learn about delegate patterns at some point. So I think it's got something to do with the delegate pattern. Now is when I pause and read the instructions again. Actually, I think it's simpler than that. I think all we got to do is update the view after each of these counts happen. Let's just try that out. So where are we at here? Oh, I see. So this one is doing fine because after the view did load, it happens. What if I don't do that? Let's not even do that. Let's not duplicate our work here. So I'm going to cut this out of view did load. And instead, I'm going to just put underneath each of these incremental counts, I'm going to update the view. Oh, except we can't just update the view. It's got to be vc.updateView. Because this is a new instance of ViewController here. Boom, bada bing, bada booey, bam boing, shimmy schwa, shweeta shwoo. Okay, pasted it in there. Now let's see what happens. Let's do this. Come on, come on. Homework be done. Homework be done. Oh, didn't like that at all. Interesting. Let me call it here also. See if that's what the problem is. Oh, didn't like that at all. So I think what's happening is, it's interesting. I think we're not supposed to be updating the view in the AppDelegate at least in one of those instances. Let me dig a little deeper and let you know what I find out. Okay, where we last left off, it was crashing, right? Let me show you the crash. Run the app, and then boom, very mad. Now notice I still left my print statements in there, and it wasn't even printing out the first of the print statements. So it was crashing really early here. Now this I know we want this here, because I tried just commenting this out, and I don't think it liked that either. Boom, doesn't like that at all. I think the problem is this. I think putting the update view inside of the AppDelegate right underneath this did launch, I think this is where the problem is. Either it's happening too quickly, like the view isn't created first, or it's like referencing two things. There's a ViewController here, and there's the actual ViewController. This is just the instance of the ViewController, and there's the other class of ViewController, and I think they're conflicting, because as soon as I take out this one, then app is fixed. I'm going to have to dig a little deeper as to why that is, but now you can see the app launched one time, did become active, happened one time, and if we minimize and maximize, you'll see these numbers increase 4 times, 5 times, 3 times, 1 time. And now we can actually see how many times our app launches, loads. You can also see that my constraints are terrible. I would have to work on this quite a bit to make it, show up in, perhaps if I took some more time with the stack view, it would all be good. So this is all, Unit 4, Chapter 2 in the what's it called, App Development with Swift, available for iBooks. If you get stuck on this chapter, then watch this rather lengthy currently it's 27 minutes long. Let's see if I can splice it down to something a little more manageable. Rather lengthy video, but pretty helpful, and have a great day. Hopefully this helps you out. You know what? Let me think about something here. Hold on. I'm going to open that project back up. You know what, everyone? I just was thinking, I had a thought as I was closing things up. I don't think it's wise to update the view every time one of these things happens. I mean, let's think about when you launch your app. You launch the app, and you want to show the user some stuff here when it becomes active, when it's in the foreground, basically. So perhaps, if it enters the background, we don't have to update the view. They can't even see the view. They don't have to, so the only time you really need to update the view is when it's loaded there, that one time. Everything else is superfluous. It doesn't matter. You don't have to call it a bunch of times, because that update view function, it does all the labels. It's not like we're just updating one at a time. We're updating the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is go back in, and this is called refactoring, because I thought my code was good, and it's all right, but I don't think we need this one. We'll enter the background. We'll enter the foreground. No, I don't need that. We might need did become active. We won't need will terminate. If it'll terminate, you don't have to update the view. Did enter the background. If it's in the background, you don't need to see the view. Will resign active. Don't need to update the view for that. So I think that all we need is this one, maybe two. When it becomes active, update the view. In fact, I'm going to venture, it's not even in here. Let's give that a shot. So the first time it launches, it updates the views when the view loads, and then after that, it only updates the view when it becomes active, like in the foreground. So right now we're good. It launched one time. I'm going to minimize it, and then go back in there, and it's incremented, and it's incremented. So there you go. there's a little bit of bloat in my code there.